I gave everyone a business card. I'm Chief Donald DeSorcy. That's D-E-S-O-R-C-Y. The common spelling on Donald. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here for this press conference this afternoon. This is in relation to an incident that took place in the town of Millbury on October 17th of this year. On that date at approximately 7:09 in the a.m., one of my officers, Officer Daly, reported a possible burglary into his residence. He resides on West Main Street here in town. Officers were dispatched to the residence, and a detective was also assigned to the case. A thorough investigation was conducted into this matter. In the final report that was forwarded to my office this morning, it was concluded by the detective that the wife of Officer Daly, Maria Daly, fabricated the entire story. That there was no break into the home, there was no larceny from the home. All property that was alleged to have been taken has been recovered, currently in the custody of the Millbury Police Department, that will be returned to the family shortly. At this time, there is absolutely no evidence implicating Officer Daly in this matter. He's exonerated. There was nothing pending against Officer Daly. It was unknown as to what was taking place. Maria Daly, the wife of Officer Daly, will be charged with filing a false police report and misleading a police investigation. Charges were filed this morning in Worcester District Court, and a summons will be issued for Mrs. Daly, and she'll be appearing in Worcester District Court at a future date. And to the best of my knowledge, this was probably motivated by some financial difficulty. That's about as far as I will go into that portion of this investigation. But I stress Officer Daly has been exonerated at this time. Absolutely no evidence indicating that any knowledge that this was happening. We take these cases seriously, and that was the main reason for this press release today. I want to get facts out there. There's been some other information that has been distributed throughout the press, not necessarily the ones in attendance here today. That was not factual. If any questions concerning why more information wasn't put out earlier, for the simple reason we want to have our information correct. I don't have a press release, we don't have any facts. And we have our facts today, and that's what prompted this
Chief,
conference.
beyond the burglary, we understand that there was some vandalism to the home. Can you address that as well?
That's correct. There was some spray painting that was done on the outside, and that was done by Mrs. Daly as well.
Can you talk about what it was?
Basically, it just said BLM on the side of the house. I did not draw any conclusions as to what that was making reference to. That was investigated throughout this whole process. Then once it was determined that the homeowner herself had spray painted that, that's about the only comment I'll make about that.
Was she trying to redirect the investigation to go somewhere else?
I guess you can imply by that, but we have no issues even close to that in this department or this town, and so then I really have no further comment on that. I'm not drawing any conclusions by that graffiti that was spray painted on the side of the residence.
When you went to the home and they reported that it was burglarized and ransacked, did you find the home to look like it had been ransacked? I mean, was stuff turned upside down, furniture inside out?
It is my understanding when the initial officers responded to the scene that day, when the reference was made to ransack, that was, again, I think one of the papers had questioned me on that, and I found that to be somewhat of a embellishment, that basically drawers were open and some things were kind of maybe disheveled, but no, the house typically was not what you would think of as ransacked, things turned over. That, my understanding was that was not the case.
Where were the missing items ultimately found?
They were turned over by Mrs. Daly to the detective at the detective's request. They were still in the residence.
So obviously this is a member of your police force. Presumably you care about him and his family. Can you just talk about how disappointing this is? You invested time and resources into this investigation that were not needed.
Well, anytime a crime is reported to this department, regardless what the nature is, obviously it came in as a very serious charge initially. It's always disheartening to have something like this happen. But the outcome, we brought to a conclusion. It was a successful conclusion in the facts that we have all our facts together. It's not, I shouldn't say it's not uncommon, it does happen that people do fabricate stories, that we do expend time and money trying to investigate, only later to find out that they were fabricated. In those cases, the charges are applicable to what Mrs. Daly will be charged with. I have empathy for the family, for the defendant as well. I'm very familiar with her, and it's an unfortunate set of circumstances that's taken place. The officer and his family as well, they're very obviously upset by all this, and I understand that. But that's why I'm asking that we have this today, that we bring this, we get the facts out, so there's not speculation, there's not innuendos, not fabrication with facts, and then we can move on from this.
Chief, who reported this incident to begin with? Was it the wife who called police? Was it her husband who came into the police station and said, hey, this happened?
It was my understanding, referencing the log, that Officer Daly made the phone call himself.
Saying that his wife had fabricated the story?
No, reporting that he believed his house had been burglarized.
How did we find out that it was fabricated? Did she confess?
Ultimately, yes.
Now, the day this happened, you have an officer whose house has been ransacked, and you have some graffiti. Did you talk to your force about taking extra precautions while at home, maybe being more alert? Did they ever feel like, hey, we're being targeted here?
I think in general, I think law enforcement, not only in town of Millbury, everywhere, we've been passing that message on to our officers, only because of the current atmosphere. It happens that we read stories, we see things on the news, and so it's always, we caution our officers to where you go when you go home. That's why I'm concerned with too many people learning where the officers reside, only for that purpose. I mean, not everyone has a negative connotation towards police, but unfortunately, a small number of the public does. But at this time, at this particular situation here, I can't say that. I guess probably the only comment I can make on that is I want to have the facts first, and I wasn't comfortable with the facts initially, and so I felt that there was more to the story than basically met to the naked eye. And as far as the situation itself, and now we have to have cameras in parking lots. Other departments are enclosing their parking lots with chain link fences. So there's always a concern that when you go home or whatever the case might be, that you could be targeted. We have not experienced that at this time. We've had no even connections with that or even threats towards that. But at this day and time, it's an unfortunate thing that everyone has to be cognizant as to what's going on. I started year 37 today, and things have changed a great deal from 1980 when I started. Before, it wasn't uncommon to leave the house unlocked and not worry about anything. But unfortunately, I get concerned when my wife goes shopping or my daughters go shopping. So that's just the state of society that we're in. As far as not to get away from your initial question, I just feel that myself and Lieutenant, we try to keep the officers up to date on things. Anytime we see things online or we see things on different reports that come out, that's part of our roll call training. That conversation is had on a constant basis. Ballistic vests are being worn, tasers, that's something that we never had before being carried. Different things, equipment that's being given to the officers now, it's something that we never even considered a number of years ago. But unfortunately, it's just the state that we're in. And but we're always have to be cognizant of it. The day you come through that door and you don't expect the next call to be the big call, then you're gravely mistaken.
What
Chief.
led you to have a hunch that this didn't add up?
Again, this is only my personal opinion. The mere fact that you have an active K-9 officer with a very active K-9 at the residence didn't make sense to me. If I was going to, and I'm not saying I ever would, if I was going to commit a criminal act, it clearly would not be under those conditions. Again, that's my personal opinion, which I thought was a little out of the norm.
So you're saying the dog was home and didn't react?
The dog was home, but when you asked if the dog was going to react or not, this was a fabricated story. So it wouldn't be like she went outside and agitated the dog. You know what I'm saying? So I can't say exactly if the dog, because it's not uncommon for the dog to get agitated if where they live. There could be animals going through the yard, etc. So the dog will bark on occasion, etc. As far as this was concerned, where all the facts ultimately were determined to be fabricated, then the assumption, and that's all it is an assumption that obviously there was no need for the dog to be agitated because as far as he was concerned, nothing really happened.
Does Maria Daly have a record? Can you tell
I
me?
can't comment on anyone's record if she has one or not.
Now, you said the wife was most likely motivated by financial difficulty. Do we believe she was planning to sell the jewelry and make an insurance claim for the alleged stolen articles, or do we know?
That would be speculation on my part, so I really don't know.
How much merchandise did she allegedly, or was claiming she took?
It was initially estimated at approximately $10,000.
You
Was
said
the
that,
officer home too?
The officer had been working a late night detail. He came home sometime after midnight, but from what I understand, nothing took place until after he was already in bed sleeping.
No other family members involved in this?
No.
You said that this happens, unfortunately, in investigations that people do fabricate details, but is this a first for you, having to deal with something like this so close to your department?
With these particular facts, these exact facts, yes. Okay, it's not a common thing. It did happen, and like everything else, we have to investigate it, bring it to a conclusion. And I prefer bring it to a conclusion than not, because that way there's always speculation as to what really happened. And there'll be innuendos and implications, but we base our investigations on evidence and on facts, not on speculation.
Chief, the connotation of BLM is that it was Black Lives Matter. Is there some kind of racial undertone at all to this?
No, absolutely not. None whatsoever.
What was your first reaction when you heard the particulars of this case?
The particulars as the initial call that came.
No, like, I guess today or whenever you got the final case file and you found out, oh wait, this is the wife of one of my officers.
Okay. Obviously, I felt, displeased. I felt a sense of, for lack of better words, I felt sorry for the family because I know that something like this is devastating to a family. Obviously, there's an issue, an underlying issue to have had this taken place, and then this is only going to exacerbate that. And then that's my concern that oftentimes we deal with the negative. It's always negative, and people seem to dwell towards the negative. And unfortunately, in this situation, here we have the same thing again. And you're right, it happened to one of our own. It's not something that can be swept under the rug. That's not going to happen. But I'd like to remind everyone that could happen to anyone at any given time. It could happen to any one of us in this room, family members, or etc. And unfortunately, once that happens, it casts a negative eye on the organization or on the family itself, when in fact this was one individual's motives. Exactly what those motives were would be speculation on my part. I don't know exactly what motivated her completely, but it's an unfortunate set of circumstances that took place, and I really can't, I was disappointed and I felt sorry for him because, this is not going to go, hopefully it's going to go away soon. As I always say, hopefully it goes the way of the rotary telephone, but unfortunately people thrive on the negative and not the positive.
Yeah, what kind of officer is police officer Daly?
He's a good officer. He's been with us approximately 12, 13 years. Very dedicated K-9 officer. Very active. Works a lot. And I have no issue with Officer Daly.
Is there any policy in place in this department when a family member is arrested and charged with a crime? Does the officer, is he asked to go on leave for a little bit until this is cleared up, even though the officer has nothing to do with it? I mean, I'm sure this could be a distraction for other officers while it's ongoing.
Well, first of all, the defendant in this case, Mrs. Daly, was not arrested. She will be summoned to the district court. But in relation to the status of the officer, that's on case-by-case basis. Obviously, we offer the officer assistance if he or she should need it. And then we monitor the officer to make sure, I'm in constant communication with my officers to make sure that they are okay in these type of matters. And then if it's deemed to be necessary, that would be a decision that I would make. If I felt an officer, we've got officers involved in shootings and they've been given time off, they've done no wrong. It's just a matter for them to basically clear their heads and get their head back into the game. In this case here, Officer Daly, he has something that's department related that's coming up, so he's going to be off patrol for a period of time. Not because of this, it was something that was already pre-planned, which is excellent timing as far as that is concerned. So he'll be kind of predisposed with with another assignment. Again, that was already scheduled some time ago. But it's basically a case-by-case basis. And but as far as the policy goes, there is nothing that's written. It's basically it's on at my discretion. And if myself or the lieutenant felt that an officer was in need of some type of assistance or whatever, I could offer the assistance to them or order the assistance to them if I felt it was deemed necessary. Try to have a good take of my officers, understanding who they are. I know their families, being here as long as I have been. We get to know their families, we get to know their children, we get to know, see them at high school games and everything else. So you get, after a while, you get to read what's going on with them. And again, it's unfortunate that we're here today. And it's an unfortunate situation for him.
Chief, along that same vein, do you know of any mental health issues related to this woman? When you said you know about their background,
I do not. If I did, I couldn't comment on that, but I'm not aware of any.
the things that she's facing as far as charges as being filing a false report and misleading police, how much time could she face, or is it a ticket? I mean, what kind of punishment are we talking about here?
The filing of a false police report is a misdemeanor charge. The misleading a police investigation is a felony charge. I believe, and quite frankly, I want to research the penalty phase of that prior to this. We have a few other things going on, and I haven't, but I believe it's up to a 10-year felony.
So why wasn't she arrested?
That's just an option that we have. I mean, she could have been. We had met with the DA's office. We discussed the case with them, and I felt the proper protocol here would have been a summons. A criminal complaint application was filed in court today. Actually, it wouldn't be an application. Charges were filed this morning in court, and then a summons would be issued. And we do this with a number of our cases, that we utilize the summons process. If I was concerned that a person wouldn't appear, was going to be evasive, leave the state, leave the country, or we didn't know who they were, then under those conditions, we probably would arrest. That way, we have them into our custody. They would be subject to bail, fingerprinted, etc. This case here, I have no reason to believe that that's going to be the case. A summons will be issued, and then the process will begin in Worcester Central District Court.
So there's no preferential treatment here?
No, absolutely not.
Well, Chief,
You said that she confessed to this. Can you tell us the circumstances of that confession? Did she come into the police department and say, "Hey, I made this whole thing up"?
Yeah, I've had to let that part stay in place until the court proceedings, but that was part of the investigation, and I really don't want to comment much further on that.
now, Chief, even though Officer Daly didn't do anything wrong, did he offer you an apology or an explanation for his wife's actions?
No, and I wouldn't expect him to try to offer the explanation to that. At some point in time, I may speak with the soon-to-be defendant myself, and she may tell me that she may not want to communicate with me at all. My only concern is their mental health, and to make sure they're okay. It was a mistake, and charges will be forthwith. And but as far as that's concerned, I'm not quite sure the officer could give me a real clear, definitive answer to that question at this time.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.